another fabulous reading month in February, so let's talk about it. In January, I did my wrap up kind of in the form of like a recommendation thing. If you like this, then you might like this. Today, we're gonna do a tier ranking for the books I read in February because who doesn't love a tier ranking? Quick stats rundown. I have the February reading journal here. Let me not get too close. Proof of the fact that I've read 8 out of the 9 books on my TBR, which is not bad. Oh no, I pulled off the T. Hold please. These stickers are really, really old and they don't stick very well, so I've been gluing them in and they still kind of come off. I could have realistically gotten 9 out of the 9 on the TBR, but 6 out of the 9 of these books were nonfiction. And that's like a little too high of a ratio for me. I probably should have thought about that, to be honest. I got towards the end of the month and I needed fiction. I wanted stories. I was like, I can't tackle any more nonfiction right now. So that's why I got 8 out of 9, but still a very respectable ratio. Other quick stats rundown. Like I said, I read 14. I DNF'd 2 books this month. I'll tell you about those. And I have 3 books currently in progress. My top genres were classics, literary, and romance made an appearance. I was in a romance mood this month. I read 6 books off my physical TBR, which is awesome. That brings us back to 41, which is where we started the year. It's fine. I read 2 books from my 26 and 26, bringing me to 4 for the year. I read 2 and DNF'd 3 books from NetGalley. Well, DNF'd or decided not to give feedback, so that list is actually down to 4. I read 4 classics, which brings me to 7. And I reread 1 book. I read 2 new books, like recent releases versus 12 backlist. It's very usual for me. I read mostly backlist. And I've also been tracking how much I use my physical library because it's one of my goals for the year. So I checked out 6 things at the physical library this month, 4 books, 1 puzzle, and 1 DVD. Let's talk about the tiers. Hold on, let me start screen recording. Can you screen record on your iPad? What? Hold on. Okay, that took way too long, but I think we're cooking. Of course, first I have to tell you about the tiers. So I have named my tiers after the 2 things besides books that I was obsessed with this month. Bridgerton season 4 came out at the beginning and then the end of the month. I'm obsessed. And also the Olympics, specifically figure skating at the Olympics, which kind of took over the first, 2 weeks, I think, of the month. Top tier, obsessed level is Boots, which if you saw Alyssa Liu's skate at the gala, you'll know what I'm talking about. You just have to go watch Alyssa Liu skate. She is full of joy and art and creativity, and she's just a joy. Next tier down is I Loved It, and this tier is I love you, I love you, I love you.
I love you, I love you, I love you.
Benedict's love confession in episode 5 to Sophie. Sorry if that's like a spoiler, but I don't think it should be a spoiler to say that in a romance series, the man does tell the woman that he loves her. The middle tier, which is like, I guess a 3-star range, which would be liked it / sort of conflicted about it maybe, is Daphne B being in Beach Read. So the actress who played Daphne Bridgerton in season 1 has been cast in Beach Read. I'm not convinced. I like her. I don't know if I see it. We'll see how that turns out. We need to see who Gus is, and then maybe I'll have a better read on it. For my did not like it tier, we have the French ice dancing villains. There's like too much lore, again, if you were super into the Olympics this time around, for me to explain this, but I feel like you can just tell from the picture that they're villainous. It was bad, but as they were skating, I was like, please fall. And he did, and they still won. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna let it go. Bitter. I'm still bitter. And then my bottom tier, my DNF tier, is Bridgerton season 3 because I never finished Bridgerton season 3. So, yep, we don't need to talk about it. Let's let's get to sorting. So my first read of the month was a reread. If you watched my vlog from the beginning of February, or I guess it would have been the middle of February, I was reading a bunch of books at the same time and it was taking me forever to finish all of them, and I wasn't even really loving most of them. So I was like, I need like a quick win. I need to finish a book. So I thought a reread would be great for that. And again, Olympics, ice skating, and a little bit of a romance mood because of Bridgerton. Again, these two things like really took over my month. I did a reread of From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. Mariana Zapata, if you've never read her, writes contemporary romance. A lot of them are based around sports, like this one. This is an ice skating pairs team, and her style is very bantery. There's usually like an enemies or rivals to lovers sort of thing. She does have a little bit of like an immature, crude sense of humor, and her characters behave kind of immaturely sometimes, but I don't know, I just really like her books. She's like the queen of slow burn is what everybody calls her. I really like this book, but we're gonna put it in I love you, I love you, I love you tier. On the Rooftop was a NetGalley arc that I had it on my TBR for this month, and I ended up DNFing it. I tried it in an ebook form, I tried listening to it on audio, and I just like was not vibing with the writing. I really didn't enjoy it very much, unfortunately. So that is gonna go into our DNF tier. The next 4 are books that I had in that reading vlog. You can go back and watch that to get more of my thoughts about them. I had my poetry collection for the month, Ode by Joshua Bennett. I liked it, thought it was good. It's kind of a perfect middle of the road tier. Same with When Trees Testify. I thought it was fine. I really liked Shelf Life. I don't know, I gave it 4 stars. I'm gonna put it maybe at the top of this one. I feel like I gave it a 4 just because it was so much better than anything else I had been reading. On reflection, it may be more of like a 3.5. No, I really liked it. It's somewhere like low to high 3. Vigil, did not like. Franchise Dancing Villains, 100%. Don't even understand it, don't like it, please get it away from me. Then again, romance mood this month. So I read The Grand Sophie by Georgette Heyer. This is actually my first Georgette Heyer. She wrote historical romance. A lot of people consider her like the grandmother of the historical romance genre. It was really so much fun. This is going right into I love you, I love you, I love you. I just really enjoyed it. Like a lot of historical romances, I felt like the end just kind of wrapped up really quick as far as the main love story, and I was like, I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. It was very abrupt. I definitely want to read more Georgette Heyer. Sophie, who was the protagonist of this one, reminded me a lot of Emma M. Lyon. So if you've read the Unselected Journals series, the Emma M. Lyon series by Beth Brower, she's not quite as fleshed out, obviously, because this is one book compared to a series as Emma, but she has the same kind of lack of boundaries and lack of care for society and the strict rules of society. She just kind of like does her own thing, kind of creates a little bit of a stir around herself. Just really fun. I liked that one. Then we have our first Boots, which is The Return of the King. I wrapped up The Lord of the Rings, and I will have a whole Lord of the Rings vlog for you very shortly. I'm so excited to make that. We'll talk about it then, but safe to say, obsessed. The Return of the King. Fabulous book, fabulous series. Good Dirt by Charmaine Wilkerson. Boots. If you have not read Charmaine Wilkerson, what are you doing? So she wrote Black Cake, and then this is her follow-up book, Good Dirt. They're about Black families and legacies and ancestors and history, and how does a family's history or a whole group of people's history really affect how individuals are living their lives today. So good. It's like such good storytelling. I really love her books. Then I read Love and Friendship by Jane Austen. I think this is gonna go top of 3rd tier. So Love and Friendship was actually the last thing I had left to read by Jane Austen that has been published. So she has her 6 main novels, and then she has a bunch of kind of like fragments and novellas and stuff. So you have Sanditon, Lady Susan, and the Watsons are usually published together. Love and Friendship and History of England and like her letters and other things are usually published in another collection under the name Love and Friendship. And it's generally her juvenilia, meaning all the stuff that she wrote when she was really young. I thought it was so fun. It was really fun to see like what she was writing when she was a teenager. It was so teenager coded. One of the stories was so melodramatic. It reminded me a lot of A Long Fatal Love Chase by Louisa May Alcott. Just another example of an early work by a classic author who later wrote such like serious, well-regarded works, but then they also have this kind of ridiculous, pulpy, melodramatic thing. So that was fun to read, but my favorite thing from this little collection was her History of England. Jane Austen is just funny. If you've never read her, the main thing you need to know about her is that her writing is so funny. It is so clever. It is so sharp. And she wrote this history of the early kings and queens of England. And when I tell you, it was on site with Jane Austen and Queen Elizabeth. Like, she hated that woman. She rode so hard for Mary Queen of Scots and was like, spent pages and pages insulting in the most insane language Queen Elizabeth, and I was like hooting and hollering. She's just hilarious. So I had so much fun reading this. I am a little sad maybe that I don't have anything new left to read from Jane Austen, so I'm just going back and rereading now. I'm actually rereading Pride and Prejudice at the moment and having such a good time, but I really enjoyed Love and Friendship. Next up, I read Song of Solomon, which is going into Boots. I mean, of course it is. It's Toni Morrison. Would it go anywhere else? I don't know. I always feel like I leave a Toni Morrison book, at least her novels, feeling less smart than when I went into them, and that's a compliment to her. Her books just make me aware of how other people are operating on just this like other plane of intelligence, and that's Toni Morrison. There's so many layers. I knew that there was symbolism there. I knew it had to mean something. I just wasn't quite sure what it meant, but I enjoy being challenged in that way sometimes. I think her works are really challenging in the best way, and that encourages you to stretch your mind and read deeper and think harder. And I just, yeah, this was really, really, really good. Then going into Boots as well is The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. Easy 5-star. I don't know really what I loved more, like the ideas that he was sharing or the way that he wrote them. I just thought his writing was so, so good, and I loved the variety in this collection. This is an essay collection essentially. A few chapters would be like complex historical overview of something, like here's the history of the Freedmen's Bureau. Next one would be a fictional short story. And then there would be a personal kind of memoir type of essay about his time as a teacher. And then back to history. And the variety just kept it really fresh, really interesting. And again, the writing was so, so good. Then I read a memoir, The Dragons, the Giant, the Women by Wayatu Moore. This is her memoir of her as a child and when she and her family escaped Liberia and the Liberian Civil War, as well as kind of her as an adult looking back on that time and going back to Liberia to get some closure maybe on her past, to understand some more about her life and her country and her family. I thought it was good. I think I'm gonna go here. I felt like she left some things on the table, which it's a memoir. She doesn't owe us anything. She doesn't owe us every detail of her story, but there were some details that she did include that I felt like were unnecessary or didn't add anything, and then others that she didn't include that I felt like would have added more. So this isn't me like criticizing her story. I rate memoirs. I know a lot of people don't, but I'm not rating their life story. I'm rating the way that they chose to write and express it. And I thought that this was good. I learned a lot, but I felt like it could have been expressed or written a little bit better. Back to historical romance. Again, you see the fingers of Bridgerton all over this month. I read Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. It's a historical romance, but with a strong fantasy twist. I thought it was really sweet. I think I'm gonna go high Daphne B. and Beach read tier. This read a little bit like Emily Wilde plus Howl's Moving Castle plus Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I really liked the couple's relationship. It did kind of take a back seat, especially in the second half of the book, to the fantasy elements, because there was like a pretty strong plot with Dora and this evil fairy, as well as these kids across London that are getting sick. Again, I liked their relationship, but I kind of wish that it had been a dual POV book, because Dora, our protagonist, is she's like incredibly oblivious. We're in her POV, and so it's obvious to us that he is falling in love with her at least, but we never get his POV, and she has no idea what's going on. So there's no pining, there's no yearning. We assume that he's yearning, but we don't get to see it. And I am first and foremost a yearning gal. Like, that is what I want out of a story, out of a romance book. But it was a sweet story, and I thought the concept was really, really fun. The last book that I finished was The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. This is gonna go probably here, like low Daphne B and Beach read. I thought it was sweet. I liked it. Listen, I am an epistolary novels #1 fan. That is my thing. I am obsessed with epistolary books, which is why I picked this one up, even though the topic didn't necessarily sound that interesting for me. And that's kind of where I'm landing. Like, I loved the letter aspect. I think it's such a fun way to experience a story. And I thought Virginia Evans did a good job telling the story through the letters. I just didn't really care that much about the story that she was telling or the character. There were a few moments I thought were really sweet. It just didn't quite land. I think she was going for like strong emotional impact, but for me, it felt a little too overly sentimental, and that is really, really not my thing. It's not so much about like a criticism of the book so much as an understanding of why this book just wasn't for me. I would say it's kind of similar to Remarkably Bright Creatures. I also thought it was really similar to A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. It's similar to a Backman, but for whatever reason, like Fredrik Backman's books really, really land for me in the way that this book did not. I think his books are a little bit more literary, and I think he does a little bit better of a job of making it actually like truly emotional without being kind of saccharine or overly sentimental, which is how this book read. The last book, How to Solve a Murder, you actually saw in my last video. I hauled it at my friend's book truck. I tried to read it, just not for me. I really didn't like the writing. I think cozy mysteries, if the word cozy is in a title, it just generally is not usually for me, mostly just because the writing is a little too simplistic. And this author, I was reading her bio, this is her first adult novel. Everything else she's written has been middle grade. I think it was obvious. So there is the spread. I would say for sure these 4 books up in the Boots tier, as well as Bridgerton season 4 and the Olympics, were kind of the summation of the things that really brought me a lot of joy this February. Thanks y'all for hanging out a little bit today. Let me know what your favorite book in February was, and I will see you soon for some Lord of the Rings. So keep an eye out for that one. I will see y'all next time.